I had a video talking about how I do think it's important to make a distinction between pro-choice and pro-abortion. The example I gave of a pro-abortion mentality was British activists defending a woman who used abortion pills at 33 weeks, resulting in the death of her baby girl. They described her abortion as a personal medical decision, and she was sentenced to jail, and they're using this case as an example of why they think abortion in the UK should be decriminalized entirely, even at 33 weeks, even for a healthy child. When I cited this story as an example of a pro-abortion mentality, there were a couple of commenters on TikTok, on Instagram, and elsewhere who thought that I was saying that people who are okay with elective abortion up until, say, the end of the first trimester are pro-choice versus people who are okay with it after that are pro-abortion because of how far along the pregnancy is and because of how developed the child is. I totally get why you got that impression, but that actually wasn't my point. I used the example of the 33-week abortion because at 33 weeks, no sane person is going to be able to argue that this is just a clump of cells. To be clear, I don't think a baby in the womb is just a clump of cells even at 6 weeks, but I understand why a lot of people would. At 6 weeks pregnant, you can't feel the baby kicking. You can't even always see the baby on ultrasound, and even if you can, the image is often blurry and tiny. You can look at embryology textbook images, and those will give you more detail, but a lot of times at that early gestation, the child looks like a shrimp or an alien or something unfamiliar. It's only in the next couple of weeks, usually by 12 weeks, that you see the recognizable human child form, and then it just gets more obvious after that. Philosophically, I don't think this makes a lot of difference, and we've had a lot of discussion about what constitutes personhood and why we think that human beings are valuable persons right from the beginning. But on a visceral, emotional level, I understand why people have a variety of reactions to images of 6-week embryos. The same cannot be said for a 33-week fetus. So when I use the example of the British case where the woman had an abortion at 33 weeks, it's not because I think a 33-week fetus is a baby and a 6-week embryo isn't. It's that I understand that it takes more discussion to establish humanity and personhood very early in pregnancy for a lot of people, and I don't understand how that could possibly be true for a 33-week baby girl. When I talk about the distinction between pro-choice and pro-abortion, I'm not saying, oh, if you're fine with abortion in the first trimester, that's fine with me. I'm saying that there are a lot of people who support abortion because they believe it's not killing a baby. And I might think they're wrong, but that's a very different motivation than people who recognize abortion as killing a baby and just don't care. There are also people who support abortion begrudgingly as this necessary evil or this tragic circumstance that just has to happen sometime. And I disagree with them, but that's very different than people who see abortion as completely morally neutral or even as a moral good. Either way, I want to be able to make a distinction between people who support abortion in more limited circumstances versus any time for any reason, people who support abortion more hesitantly versus people who embrace it fully with no qualms, people who support abortion because they believe it's preventing a life from coming into existence versus people who don't care that it is ending a child's life. Those are different mentalities, they're different perspectives, and I think they require different responses. I don't think the pro-life side does ourselves any favors by glossing over those distinctions, and that's kind of what we're doing when we insist that there's no such thing as pro-choice, only pro-abortion. Call it whatever you want, but recognize the gradations.